Welcome to part 2 of Angular from Scratch series. And in the previous part, we ended up with title being set to whatever, and then we could see that change right here in localhost 4200. So now let's discuss the CSS file of app component. The CSS file is currently empty. At this point of our examination of the default barebones app, we will not add any changes to it. The only important thing to note about the CSS file for our app component is that whatever CSS properties we specify in this CSS file, those CSS properties will be applied only to the app component. Next, we'll discuss the app.module file. And we have a diagram for it right here. As we can see, it has the three distinct parts of imports, then a decorator, and an export. So let's discuss the imports first. It has two subsections. The first subsection is the NgModule, and if you read the official documentation, it provides an in-depth explanation of the NgModule. But basically, a simplified explanation is that it's just a decorator that accepts a metadata object literal. The second subsection imports the browser module. As can be also read in the official docs, the browser module exports all the required infrastructure for all Angular apps. To be more specific, the browser module gives us some browser-specific services, including DOM rendering and sanitization. We've seen a decorator earlier when we discussed the app component file. The decorator we discussed there was the add component decorator, and now we'll discuss the add NgModule decorator. So, similar to the add component, it takes a metadata object. In the case of the NgModule decorator inside the module file, the NgModule decorator describes how to compile the app component. It basically serves to describe how the entire app's quote-unquote plumbing works, as it lists out all the necessary parts: the declarations, the imports, the providers, and the bootstrap, or the entry or root component. After we've imported the entire browser module and the NgModule, we are also importing the following two modules: the app-routing module and, well, not a module but a component. So the app-routing module and the app component. With that, we now understand what the first section of our app module does. It simply imports all the things we will need to pass to the metadata object in this file's decorator. So we specified 4 keys in the metadata object. The declarations specifies all the components our app module uses. Imports specifies all the modules our app module uses. Providers entry specifies all the data providers, but we don't need to understand that just yet. And bootstrap specifies the root component that Angular will insert into the index.html file, which will be served in our app. The third section is just an export of the app module class. Alright, so now let's move on to the app routing file. So let's find it right here. And let's go back to the diagram. So the router is a service. It is used to show a specific component template under a URL that we specify. In this image, we can find the router imports on line 2 of the import section, right under the NgModule import. So again, the structure is pretty much the same as in other files. We've got the imports, then we've got the decorator, and we've got the export. And also we've got another tidbit right here a variable of routes, which is currently an empty array, but we'll soon add to it. So let's now see how an Angular app is inserted into index.html. Alright, so if we close the app subfolder inside the src folder, now we can see that in the src, besides the app folder, we have some other stuff as well, including index.html. And if we open it right here, we see this custom tag, which is app-root. And this tag is where our entire Angular app will get mounted. And if we go back to the browser, press the F12 key to inspect, we can see that the app-root is mounted right here. And that's our Angular app being mounted inside index.html. That is right here. All right, so we've already covered all of this, but now might be a good time to reiterate how our app gets mounted. So inside the src app folder, the app.module file combines all the plumbing of the Angular framework. It lists the metadata for the app module inside the @NgModule decorator and specifies components, modules, data sources, and the root component to mount into the index.html file. The bootstrapped app component is actually the one that comes from this file right here. The app component file has its own metadata object passed to the decorator. The first entry inside the app.component decorator is the custom HTML tag for our app component. This is the selector entry, and its value is app-root. In a nutshell, this is how our Angular app gets loaded into the index.html file. In turn, this file gets loaded into the browser at localhost 4200 when we run the ngserve command. Alright, so we've covered the contents of the generated app folder and the index.html file in the very root of our project. So now we're gonna talk about tracking our project with Git. If you're familiar with Git, there are two good things to note. First, every ng-new app comes with Git installed, and once the boilerplate app is ready, the first commit is made with a commit message of initial commit. So let's confirm that. I'm going to go inside the terminal here, press Ctrl-C to stop it, type clear to clear the terminal, and now I can say git git log -5, and of course, or -5. And of course, it's only going to show one because there was only this initial commit right here. Cool. So that's the first point. The second point, I've tried my best to keep all the progress in this course nicely in nicely organized commits. So as we go along, I'm going to be saving these changes in my own GitHub account, and hopefully that's going to make it easier for you guys to follow along. All right, so that's it. That wraps up the second video in this series. I hope you found it useful. If you did, like, subscribe, and all of that business. And I hope that you're looking forward to part 3, just like I am. Till then, take care.